there's so many great people that have been a part of our community. One woman who found out about us and was just like, this community is so important to me. You've like helped me get out of my depression. And I don't want to take all the credit for saving a life, but I mean...
Hello from Los Angeles, California. I'm so excited to be here today chatting with Lindsey Barrow and Randy Thompson. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so you both live in LA, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. What's that like? I live down in San Diego, but LA has still this like mysticism for me, and it just can't shake all the things that I've seen in movies and shows, even though it's so super close to where I live. What is it like living here?
Well, it's kind of constantly surprising, I think, because I'm from the Midwest, as is Randy,
Mm-hmm.
and my impression of Los Angeles was this, like, everyone hated it, and everyone was thin and blonde and tan.
How true is that?
It's only 70%.
Right. It's only entirely true.
It's definitely not like that exactly. There are a lot of really great looking blonde and tan people, but I found a lot of like really great people and friends here very quickly.
Nice.
So it's like when I moved to Chicago, and then I moved back to St. Louis for a little while. And it was a lot easier to make friends here in Los Angeles than either of those two places.
That's
Not saying anything about those guys, but
Yeah.
That's a different narrative than you usually hear about Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about you, Randy?
I came from New York, and to me, New York was the city where you get there and you immediately know if you're going to like it or not. It feels very much like it tells you who it is right away.
Yeah.
And when I moved here, I had a friend who had lived here for a while who said, give it a year before you make any kind of, any pronouncements about your experience here. And that was true for me because I needed to figure out the neighborhoods that I liked, the people, like find my communities and my, areas. And I think to me, that's the most interesting thing about LA is it feels like, 30 or 40 cities all kind of stitched together in the same area. It feels so different depending, I live in South LA versus downtown where our theater is. And then yesterday I was driving up to Pasadena, and it was just like, that experience, like driving from my house to Pasadena and then to the theater, was like driving through three entirely different cities in different states, kind of. I mean, it seems so, it's so diverse here, in both like geographically and in all senses of that.
Nice.
Yeah, we just moved to downtown. The theater just moved to downtown, and we've been there very frequently lately working, and every time I like go into downtown from Silver Lake is where I live, and I just feel like I'm going into a different place, like entirely different city every single time. And it's so exciting. It's like I'm going on a weird staycation every day. I'm like, these people, it is just a very different vibe down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It's nice.
Silver Lake, I've been there a few times, and that's seems like a really cool place to live.
It is. Oh, it's so cool. Everybody's really cool there. So.
Yep. Cool, thin, blonde.
Cool, thin, and blonde. Lots of dogs.
Just
Lots of dogs.
walking past a cafe once, and Aubrey Plaza was just hanging out outside of it. And I was like,
yeah.
oh, I'm in LA now.
Yeah.
You made it.
Wow.
There it is. There's a very big comedy casting director who has a place right next to a cafe where I live.
Wow.
And if you go there, you can see a lot of comedians.
I will
Yeah.
take the name of that off air. Well, I'd love to know a little bit about each of you individually as well before we dive into the story that you're kind of, both involved in. Lindsey, you're an actor, a comedian, a writer. What do you say when people ask you what you do?
Oh, that's so. It depends on who's asking me.
Yeah.
It really does. If I'm in a lift, I say that I'm a business owner.
Nice.
Oh.
because
you don't want people to ask. Like,
you just don't want people to be like, oh, I got this really great script I want you to read or whatever.
Gosh.
It's just weird. Or when I went to Maine on vacation this summer, and my aunt introduced me as a writer, and I said, oh, I really appreciate that you said that I'm not an actor. And she goes, oh, why? Aren't you a writer? And I said, well, technically, no, I've never been paid to write. But I do write things. I do get paid to act, but people they always want to know, oh, what have I seen you in? And you're like, well, have you seen me in this commercial where I turn and look at the camera and give a wink or whatever? It's just very small parts. So, Yeah. When people ask, I guess I try to say that I'm a comedian because that kind of overarches it all.
Nice.
I don't know. That's a word. And I'm a writer.
Yep.
Very cool. Oh, I was looking at, your resume or like what you list on your website bio, for the theater, and it seems like you've been on shows on like almost every network. That's really cool.
That's true. I have been on shows on every network.
Not
every network. That's like
every single network.
Univision.
Yes.
Really?
No.
This is hard to encompass into one answer, but what has your journey as, an actor and comedian been like?
Well, I took a really long way to get here. I went and got my degrees in originally psychology and anthropology, and then I moved to Chicago from Missouri to work in the music business and didn't do any comedy there whatsoever.
Wow.
Yeah, which is nuts. And then I moved back to St. Louis to get my master's in guidance counseling. And there I started taking improv classes, and I was like, oh, I really love this. This is like really, really fun, and I want to do this. And so then I decided, oh, well, you can move to New York and like go through that whole thing and then have to move to Los Angeles inevitably.
Yeah.
Or you could just move to Los Angeles now. Same for Chicago. I could go back to Chicago, do that whole thing, and then have to move to Los Angeles. So I just decided to cut out the middleman, move to LA, immediately started taking improv classes.
Nice.
Yeah. My second day here, I was in an improv class.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah, and then I got on a team at a theater here and got an agent, and it was all very like just it started really working. Like
LA dream.
Yeah, it was weird. Well, I'd been trying to do so many other things, and it never worked this easy for me. So it was always like, oh, I can't get a job as a guidance counselor. Oh, I just wasn't achieving those things. And then when I had changed my path, it just opened up a little bit more.
Wow.
Not saying that it's easy to be an actor, because it isn't. It's really hard to be an actor. But I think going on as many job interviews as I had before coming out here was kind of a little precursor to acting, because that's all it is. It's constant job interviews.
Yeah.
And just being okay with that. I think, I don't know. Yeah. So that's how I ended up here doing this. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I think it's especially cool to me that you do improv. My friends and I started an improv like troupe at our high school.
Oh yeah. Great.
And it was so much fun, and we got to compete against other high schools and stuff. So I didn't end up doing it in college or anything, but I really had so much fun. And I think it teaches you skills that you can apply to so many of the rest of the parts of your life,
Yeah.
Even something like a job interview or something like that, or being able to, I don't know, just think quicker on your feet or be more confident. So
yeah.
I love improv. So Randy, how about yourself? I read online that you are a very seasoned performer and actor as well. You said you are from New York, and seems like you spent a lot of time in the theater world there. Yeah. What was that like?
So I'm originally from Ohio.
Okay.
So I don't want to take any credibility for being cool.
All right, let's
but I moved to New York for college and did an acting major at a school in New York, and then stayed in the city for about 10 years doing mostly experimental dance theater.
Cool.
I was in a company there that we traveled, a little bit around the States and internationally. We did some, I thought, really amazing, creative, interesting work that didn't pay anything, but was really fun to do. And then I would have happily stayed in New York just doing off-Broadway and doing theater there. I was pretty much in a really solid place as far as like what I wanted to achieve. I was creating good work, and I really enjoyed my life there. And then I fell in love with somebody who then got into grad school in California, and she was like, well, I'm moving. And we were like, okay, maybe we'll do long distance for a while. Oh no, that sucks. And so I moved out to California with, not really a solid plan other than just, I want to be with this person who's now my wife. And so we moved to Orange County, where she was in grad school. And my thought, looking at a map, I was thinking, it's fairly close to LA. I can drive in for auditions.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try out film and TV, because I haven't really done a lot of that. And got here and booked a show, a theater piece in Santa Monica, and when I had been here for maybe like 2 weeks. So it was just like,
Wow.
I went on one audition, I got it, I was the lead in this
Look
play.
at
I was
you
like,
two.
this is amazing. And then I realized that commuting from Orange County to LA on a daily basis
Oh
for
my gosh.
rehearsals is an insane proposition. So our rehearsals would start at like 5 p.m. So I'd get on the road in Orange County at like 3 and then
No.
usually be late. I'd usually like run in the door like a little bit after 5. And so that part was a little bit of a wake up call. And so I just kind of chilled out on acting for a couple of years and just lived in Orange County, and I had an office job, and I was just like, living a normal person's life. And then we had this decision to make after she got out of grad school. She was a theater director, and that was her pursuit. And we were looking at different places that we wanted to live, and we both kind of had this idea of, I've been out here. I had wanted to maybe try film and TV, so maybe we'll go to LA and we'll give it a year and just give it a shot and see what that's like. And so we did, and we've just stayed since then. So that was 2011. So this will be our 9th year in the city. Is that right?
I didn't know you'd been here since 2011 because I came here 2010.
Huh.
Wow. I can't believe we didn't meet until just 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, right. We've just been email friends before now.
Email pen pals, owning a business together.
But I found it, it was pretty difficult. I got an agent fairly quickly. I did some theater, and then I just went on commercial audition after commercial audition for a year and a half before I booked anything. And it was... at a certain point, I was just like, well, this is all I do is I just professionally audition. I just go in and out of these rooms and then never to be heard from again, then never to talk to those people again. And then I ended up booking a few things here and there, and then it started to pick up a little bit to the point where now I feel more comfortable telling people I'm an actor when they ask like what I do. But it's just been an interesting journey. And I think that for me, my idea of kind of where I should be at this part of my life has shifted wildly. Every single year it changes, and my goals change, and my ideas of what success are change. And so that's, I'm always constantly just kind of looking back and being like, oh, this year I was more of a voiceover artist than I was a commercial actor. This year I was just a commercial actor. And then, it's fun. Every day is different and weird. So
It's very cool to hear two real, let's try LA stories.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think, just to say one more thing about acting, I think a lot of people think when you move to LA and you become an actor, it's like you either have to be a series regular on a TV show or else you're not making it, but that's not true.
Yeah.
If you're booking 2 or 3 commercials a year, you're doing just fine.
Nice.
Yeah. You're actually making a living at it, so.
Right.
And that's good for me.
Yeah.
Right now. Right now that it's good for me.
Yeah.
Just making a living.
It is important to clarify stuff like that because I feel like people have such an idea of just one way of success, but that's an important thing for people to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are here today to talk about an extremely cool thing that I have so many questions about. In addition to the amazing aspects of your careers that we just covered, you are also business partners at the Ruby LA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lindsey, why don't you take this one? What is the Ruby LA exactly?
Oh, no. I have
or maybe
to take
Randy should take it.
No. Randy's always a lot better at giving the super cool, succinct.
We can pass it over.
Of what
All right,
it is.
change your plans.
It's an intersectional feminist comedy theater in school, and our whole purpose is to lift up marginalized voices. But those are all very technical terms. I feel like. Yeah.
I wanted to break down just for any of our listeners who aren't familiar with what those terms mean, what is intersectional in that context? What does that mean?
Intersectional feminism specifically is not white feminism, but feminism that takes everything about an individual's circumstance into consideration. Okay. So that we're not all just trying to get abortion legalized. We are all trying to make sure that women of color are paid as much as everyone else, and that they're taken care of, that LGBTQ individuals are getting their needs met, that everyone is included in this, and it's not just the specific super white agenda. Yeah. Do you want to say more on that?
I think that was pretty great.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And you mentioned that part of the mission is to make space for marginalized voices in comedy. Why is that so important?
Well, for a long time, the voice that dominated comedy was one specific voice. And representation matters, to quote Randy from a conversation we had 2 days ago, but representation matters. And hearing other people's point of views, it's just helpful for everyone. And it makes stories richer and better. And having just that one specific style of comedy and hearing over and over and over again that it's universal when it's not a universal comedy. There's no universality about comedy. So having different points of view it's just better. It's just better comedy. It's more well-rounded comedy. And making a safe space means that we are making it so that these people can have their voices heard and not be told that what they're doing is wrong. Yeah. That's not the correct way to do comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, a big part of what we have always talked about and focused on is the fact that we want to see on our stages the same groups of people that we see in our lives every day. Yeah. And because historically there have been theaters that have arisen that it's tough to talk about without making it seem malicious. Like, I don't think anybody who came around before us and created a theater that was largely homogenous and had kind of a similar viewpoint was doing so maybe even consciously or maliciously, but just that the people who were making decisions tended to represent a certain style and a certain viewpoint, and that then by design trickled down into what the stages looked like, what the shows looked like, what pitches were getting accepted there. And so what we wanted to see was a place where that wasn't the case, where really we changed up the gatekeepers a little bit and had more voices who were making the decisions to say, this is the type of thing that we're going to put on our stage, this is the type of person that we were going to have teach our class, like those types of things, so that it represented the world around us, and that we gave specifically, and this is where we've been a little bit more proactive in this regard, in my opinion, is that we've then carved out more, or tried intentionally to carve out more spaces for people who historically have not been able to have a space in other places. Yeah. So I think that that's accurate to say.
I like that you two say the piece about trying not to blame other theaters or other places, because that's something that happens a lot when we talk to people. It's like, oh, well, what makes your place different, or why is this important? And it's hard to not talk about this without saying, well, at other places, this is what happens. But I don't think it was ever an intentional thing. It's just when you have your way of doing something and you're a specific type of person, that's the way you think that it's funny, or that's what you think is important. Well, that's the voice that you think is important to hear because it's your own. And that makes sense. It just also is great to hear other voices.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And one big thing that we do that Randy kind of touched on is we make sure to hire from top down. Like, we're it's very important to us to do top down diversity hire and make sure that our board of directors is as representative of those people that we want to see on stage as well.
Nice.
So that's kind of what a major difference, I think, is for us as compared to other places, is that we started from the top, not from the bottom.
Yeah. That's so important. I read you also have an annual queer comedy fest.
Yeah.
Which is so awesome. What is that event like?
So fun. and the first year, it was just like so great. It was the first year we did it was 12 hours.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then last year we're like, that's way too long. So we made it 6 hours. Or was it 12 hours? God, I don't remember.
No, last year was shorter.
It was shorter last year. But that was only because we had so many people come through, and it was just gave everybody a bunch of time, and it wasn't really as necessary to do that. Yeah. But it's a really, really fun event, and people from all over the city come and do different pieces. There's just some really insane stuff that happens during that festival that's not really radio appropriate, but it's great to see. It's just such, I don't know, it makes me feel all warm and tingly to like have all of these great voices get up on stage, and some of them try things that they've never done before, and have a place to do that and not, be made fun of or be the butt of the next comic's joke or whatever, which happens sometimes.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Well, it was cool for me just to, when you give a space, like, for example, was it last year that we did the Each Hour kind of headlined by, like, when we separated out, like, the community, like...
There, the first year we did Each Hour was LGBTQ.
Right. That's what I was thinking of. And it was just, like, seeing a full hour of trans comedians, like a space that was dedicated for trans comedians to come in. And it was just like, oh, there's all these amazing people in the city who I wouldn't otherwise have even known about. And that's, my own like lack of horizons or whatever. But it was amazing to see when the creators of that festival set aside this space and said, this is who we're dedicating this time to. It was just amazing to see who all showed up for that. And I heard that from a number of people who attended too, of just like, from a number of the performers as well. It was just like being in this room where it's like, this next hour is going to be all, trans comedians, all lesbian comedians, all bi comedians. It was like giving space for a specific community that was, otherwise we hadn't seen a lot of. I wouldn't say that it isn't out there. For sure.
Yeah. And the person who came to us with that festival, I do want to give him credit, is Scott Root, who was a performer at the theater. And he, like, as soon as we kind of opened up, he was like, hey, I want to do this festival. And it was right after we opened and had this big festival. And I was like, oh my God, you're going to murder me with all of this work. But he took a lot of it on. And so... and like laid a lot of really great groundwork. He's I think a production assistant for some show, maybe 911. I'm not sure, but he's very, very organized, very organized, which is so great. And he wanted to do this festival and made it this amazing thing.
Wow, yeah. That is really powerful. Mm-hmm. I would, before we move on to what happened, and bring the GoFundMe campaign side into it, just real quick, I'd love to hear from each of you on a personal level, what makes the Ruby LA so special to you? Do you want to start, Lindsey?
Randy.
All right, I'm getting a pattern here.
No. Randy is what makes it so special.
I thought you were kicking it over to
No, I'm not kicking it over to Randy. No, the community has always been what it's about for me. And being able to kind of put our own spin on stuff. So, like, we just built this new space, and it was hard work, but it was also really rewarding at the end to see everything that we built and put together, and how it, I think, was really representative of our own aesthetics and style. And just there's so many great people that have been a part of our community. One woman who found out about us and was just like, this community is so important to me. You've like helped me get out of my depression and like find people. And I don't want to take all the credit for saving a life, but I mean, but like
That's
we
beautiful.
save lives.
Yeah.
No, it's just like it's just like a really, like you hear stuff like that, especially when we started our campaign, that it's like, oh yeah, that's why we put, 70 hours a week into building a space.
Wow.
Like,
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I think it's probably the same for me. I think it's the people and the community. We just that version of what you just said about somebody saying that, like, I feel like I found a home, and that we've heard that over and over from a number of people who have been in our space. And I think that my comedy experience in Los Angeles has been exclusively the Nerdist, which was what we were before we became the Ruby. It was the space that Lindsey and I were performing at before we took over and kind of reimagined it and recreated this new thing. So I don't have a lot of connections with other theaters. So, but for me, it's from the outside, it seems like this community can be a little tribal, where it's like, this is my space, this is my team. I'm on this team and not that team. And I think one of the things that I've personally tried to instill is kind of breaking that down a little bit and just being, super positive and uplifting about the things we're doing, and not trying to bring down anybody else, and also being supportive. We have a lot of performers who perform at different theaters throughout the city, and it's like, that's super cool to me and amazing. So it's just, I don't know, it's from my perspective, it's been like such a positive community. And we just had our kind of soft opening the other day at the new space that literally up until 1 a.m. the night before, Lindsey and I were there with her husband and my mom, you know, sweeping and mopping and like getting it fully like ready to go. And a couple of times I heard people who came in and it was their first time they'd ever walked into the space. They weren't there for any of the construction or anything, and saying to each other, like, this is ours. Like, this is ours. And there was that first, you know, it was a weird thing where it was like, my first like cynic part of my brain was like, you didn't hammer that wall. I built that wall.
This is ours.
But then it was just so, I don't know, there was something so amazing about like this group of people who feel like this is a home for them.
I
And
love
that feels really incredible to have been a part of creating.
That is so lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is really nice. I didn't hear anybody say that.
Yeah, a couple of people did.
Oh, that's nice. People were mostly asking, how are you doing? And then I go, oh, fine, great. And they go, but how are you really doing? Almost every time.
Don't ask. Don't answer
tired.
that.
I'm very tired. I'm very tired.
Ask me later.
Yeah.
Well, so to dig into what happened, you know, that we're here to talk about today, unfortunately, I think in August of last year, the Ruby LA got some bad news.
Mm-hmm.
You were informed that this theater space that you poured your hearts into was going to be demolished in favor of putting up condos. And I love on your campaign description, you're like, yeah, it does sound like a Joni Mitchell song. And that was the first thing I thought when I read it. I was like, that is just cinematic in the worst way, you know?
Yeah.
What was it like when you heard that news? That sucks really bad.
Oh my
so
God.
did.
It was, the way we found out was brutal. We were doing an event we had an all women's panel. This group came in and they would do these panels of professionals. And somebody was painting. We were in this building that was like a bunch of buildings connected together. And someone was painting one of the old stores that had moved out at the end of the block. And I was like, oh, what's going on? Why are you painting over this old store? And they're like, oh, we're just painting. I'm like, okay. So then I walk in, continue to do work. One of our other board members, Steph Garcia, comes in and she's like, I just talked to them and they said that they're demolishing the building in December and that's why they're painting.
What?
And I go, wait, what?
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah. So I went out and asked them and they were like, I don't know anything about that. And I was like, okay. So then the next day I called the landlord and I was like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, I sent you a bunch of paperwork, which he did not do. He did not do any of that.
Sneaky.
So, which it was like kind of, you know, landlords have like handlebar mustaches
Yeah,
and they twirl them.
Come on now.
In my mind, that's what's happening. Yeah, so he'd said that, and I was like, okay, well, what's the scoop? And he was like, everybody has to be out by November 30th. And that was August.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were like, okay, cool. There had been this rumor for a long time that they were going to demo this block and put condos up. But
Yeah.
he was very like, oh, I'll let you plenty of time. I'll tell you so much time in advance. And then we'd heard it had been at like another year or something.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, in construction in the city, that happens all the time. Where it's
Yeah.
like the developer creates this plan of, I'm going to build these giant condos here, and then submits a plan to the city, and it's reviewed, and then for some reason that gets canceled, and a new developer comes in, and they have a new plan. And that had been kind of the situation. I mean, we knew since before the Ruby that there was talk of this happening, but there had been no firm construction plans at all.
There was an article on Curbed that was like, that said in 2 years it was going to happen. That article was 4 years old.
Right.
Oh.
So we were like, okay, well, we'll see if this really happens.
And when we did sign the lease originally, he said, we do have construction plans eventually, and said I'm not going to say that he promised certain things or didn't promise certain things, but the indication that we had was that we would be given at least, 6 months to a year of a heads up.
Not
if that
2
was
months
happening.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
What was the immediate reaction afterward? Was it like, oh no, we're done for? Or was like let's fix this mode? What was it like?
I have to dig out the text because I think it came. Lindsey texted me and a couple other board members at the same time, and I think I just laughed. I mean, I think I was just like, because we had, any business a small business is hard. Any nonprofit is really hard. Starting and running a comedy theater in LA is really, really hard.
Yeah.
And starting and running a comedy theater that's like specifically intersectional branded feminism is very, very difficult. So it's just like, not say our experience was one of challenges throughout the full year of our first opening. I mean, it was just hurdle after hurdle after hurdle that any small business owner could tell you that that's part of the game. And so I think I can't remember exactly what had happened, but there was something that we had just kind of like rounded the corner of. And then there was this text that came through and I was like, well, sure, of course it is.
It was like, we just gotten done with auditions, the Queer Comedy Festival, just like thing after thing after thing that we've been working hours and hours and hours on. And then like, oh, by the way, now we have to move the theater. And it was just like, oh, yeah, no, of course we do. We thought we were going to get some time off to like think.
No.
Now we have to figure out how we're going to get enough money together to move this place.
And space-wise, we were very lucky. So the space used to be a comedy theater and school called the Nerdist School, which is where Lindsey and I were both performing. And then through a number of different factors, the ownership of that school decided that they wanted to divest themselves of it, and they didn't want to be, running a theater and school anymore. And we, at the same time, a group of us, including Jen Curran, who's one of the other co-founders, we're all kind of performers or teachers at that space. And Lindsey had been working there as an artistic director at different, we'd all worn a lot of different hats there. And so we basically created this pitch to that company and said, we want to take it over and we will, create it and take all the reins and basically you can be done. And then that was successful. And so we just, that's how the Ruby sort of originally sprang up, but it was a space that was already in existence, a theater that we knew. There were already, seats and lights and chairs and risers, and those things were already in place. So logistically, I mean, there were huge things that had to happen as far as creating this new entity, but logistically, the space existed. So we didn't have to have the experience of finding a new theater and building a new theater and creating something, that hadn't existed before there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, until now.
And then we did.
And then we did.
Yeah.
So you get this news. I would imagine the first thing that you think about is space. Like, where are we going to move to?
Yeah.
What's the first thing you did? How do you go about this process of trying to think of moving an entire, comedy theater?
Piece by piece. Like, I don't know. I have to separate it down into like, okay, well, we need to raise money and then we need to figure out where we're going to go. And all that has to also kind of be done at the same time because to know where we're going to go, we have to know how much money we need to raise. And it was like a very chicken and egg situation where if we didn't raise enough money, then we couldn't move. And if we didn't know how much money we had to raise, then we couldn't raise. It was just, a whole thing. So we decided to do the GoFundMe to raise the money so that we could move. And then when we started to talk about locations, we had talked about a lot of different places: North Hollywood, Koreatown, downtown, and then Silver Lake or Pasadena, like wherever. But those places were just completely out of our price range. Just completely out of our price range. And what was crazy about downtown is that it was really pretty affordable. So we looked at some places in Koreatown and looked in downtown, and it was just like that process was taking so long. And finally, even though really I guess it probably took a month and a half for us to get a place. But it still felt like I don't know, every moment that we didn't have a place secured, I was just like on edge about all of it. And looking at places, and I was just like, we'll never find a place, and if we can't afford it, and all this stuff. So when we finally saw the place downtown, we actually had one place in mind that we kept going back and forth with this guy, and he was like, yeah, you guys are going to get it. And then there's this barber shop that's also kind of interested. So we went back and forth with this other place for 3 weeks, almost a month. And finally they were like, oh yeah, we're sending the paperwork over. You guys got it. We're like, yes, we got it. It's a great place. And then sent over the paperwork. I was getting ready to send over the paperwork later that afternoon. He says, oh, never mind. The barber shop just offered us more money and they're getting it. And so we were like, oh my God.
No.
And it was gone. And that's just like how it kind of was happening. So It was really stressful. It was really, really stressful.
Yeah.
I don't recommend doing that. But everything I did was like look on Craigslist. Everything was on Craigslist, which I was surprised to find so many rentals on Craigslist.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple existing theater spaces that people had recommended to us, and we had talked originally about maybe there's some arrangement that could be made with another theater that we kind of exist under their roof, but we are our own thing. And it just, anytime we would go down that road, it was so difficult to envision, how do we continue to do what we do and without owning our own space?
Yeah.
That's been the luxury of this business from the beginning, is that we have been the sole business there. We have the keys. We can say what happens, what doesn't happen. And we're not really, having to negotiate with other people. And then existing theaters, the rental rates are just so high.
Yeah.
And I mean, for good reason. I mean, they can charge what they can charge. So we knew pretty quickly that we were probably going to have to create whatever we wanted out of, a more raw space.
Yeah.
And so it was just the overwhelming feeling of just how much still lay ahead of us. Once we got that news was a lot. But Lindsey and Ptolemy, who's also on our board, started kind of hitting the road. And Lindsey really did almost all the legwork. I mean, going to see these places, sending us pictures, just being like, I saw this. It has a door that locks and lights.
Great,
like, we're happy. We're like, great, fine.
Love it.
Does it have a bathroom?
It has a bathroom.
Yeah.
It has a door.
Right.
It's got a pull-down gate.
Yeah.
Nice. That's better than our last place.
Right. And it's, it's like in any city, it's going to be, commercial real estate is tough to find. And really, it's like when you have very specific needs, which we do, you're already going to be limited. And then your budget, our budget has to be a major consideration, because it's just, we're always going to be operating on fairly thin margins. And that's just the nature of what we do. So we wanted to make sure that it was affordable and a space, obviously a space that could suit our needs, but a space that we could sustain, long term.
Yeah.
So what space did you finally land on? You found one, yes?
Yeah. We're now at 810 South Main Street,
Oh
baby,
my gosh.
downtown Los Angeles.
Woo.
Yeah. It was very fascinating.
What is it? What kind of space did it end up being like?
It's bigger than our previous space.
Nice.
It used to be a print shop. They had some kind of printer services in there. And so we were like, okay, no, because we had essentially, our previous place wasn't a theater either. It was a room that was connected to a comic book store that we got to use. And so we turned it into the theater, and we knew that that's what we would have to do. So we're like, okay, this place has a lot of room. We're not going to have to like demo anything to get where we are. We're going to have to build a lot, but we can do it. And Brandy's got so much knowledge about building and construction, so I felt pretty confident that it could get done. He probably was so mad at me every time I was like, let's just do this, because I know you can do it. And he'd be like, okay.
Yes,
let's do it. Great.
Well, I think, I mean, it's a big open space.
Nice.
So that was super cool. The second that we walked in, the possibilities were really exciting, because we knew immediately we were going to be able to have a dedicated theater space, a dedicated classroom, and
Nice.
then a room for a green room, and then other possibilities as we go along too. We had a podcast studio in our old space,
Cool.
and so we were having podcasting, and that was really exciting. And that's one of the things that's kind of on the phase 2. When we can allow ourselves to breathe for a second and look at what we've done, then there's going to be the next phases of what are the next things that we need to build and get up and going. But the first picture that Lindsey sent, there was no power to the space. It was very dark, and so it looked tiny. It looked like it has an acoustic ceiling, like an office ceiling kind of thing. And I thought that was at like 8 feet. So it looked like, a really, really small thing. And I just kind of was like, what? We can make it work. We're going to do it. It's good. And then we got in there. It's like, oh, these are 14 feet off the ground. This is like it's going to be fine. We're going to be able to do it. So I think, I mean, I was super excited the first time I walked in.
Yeah.
At just, what could be. I mean, the other thing is that the area... LA has changed, or downtown LA especially, is changing all the time. It has been, undergoing a lot of change over the past 10 years. more than that. But the area that we are in, there's a lot of cool kind of things happening, as well as a little bit rougher around the edges spots. And it just, to me, it represents a lot of possibility as well, because it's a new geographic area and going to be a new community. Because the other thing, I think what we were talking about before about what it's like to live in LA, it can be very much like, okay, I live in Pasadena, I will never leave Pasadena again. I live in the Valley, I'm only staying in the Valley. So there's going to be a segment of the population that hadn't known about us previously that are now going to be a part of our community just because of our location. So that's really super cool and interesting.
That's so exciting.
I even when we were, was it Friday night that I was painting outside? And I kept getting stopped to be like, what is, and people were so friendly and excited about like, possibility of a comedy place opening, which in our previous location, we were in this weird kind of dead zone of not a lot happening and not really any foot traffic at all. So having those interactions with people, and even at one point I was like up on a ladder doing stuff, and this guy walked by and I was like, oh, here it is, I'm going to get catcalled.
Oh no.
Because it happened in the old space when I would do stuff on ladders. And he was like, hey, I just wanted to talk to you about how you're painting and like what kind of paints you're using. And I just got these paint markers for my business. And I was just like, what? Who are all these amazing, nice people? Where did you come from? But so that's been really just a beautiful, amazing thing that's happened as well that we didn't even count on with that location in that area.
That is so exciting.
Yeah.
I'd love to touch on the GoFundMe campaign for a moment. So once you secured the new space, you had a deadline to be out of the old space. And as you said, needed some help with the moving costs and all the transition of everything. Whose idea was it to launch the GoFundMe campaign?
I think, there was the GoFundMe. Basically, when was that? Was over the summer, maybe?
It was spring, March. Okay. It was like March.
Time is
relative, a flat circle.
It's true.
So we originally had plans to grow the business in a specific way, and we wanted to expand in certain ways. And so we had come up with this idea of creating a GoFundMe campaign. And Lindsey and I, and then Jeff Thompson, who's also on our board, and Steph was not in that one. No. So the three of us just kind of threw together this shoot where we all know a little bit, enough to get us into trouble and not enough to do anything effectively. And so we put together this shoot. We shot kind of testimonials for ourselves about, for our community about what the Ruby meant to us, and then had started this campaign, and then just very quickly realized that we wanted to maybe take it in a different direction, and we kind of tabled that a little bit. And it was in the stage of we're still talking about how to get this campaign going and maybe redo a little bit about it when we got the news about the space in the fall or the late summer. And so then it was just like, no, we have to do this.
No, we have
for different reasons now.
Yeah. So we scrapped everything we had written and done before, wrote this silly thing.
It's very well done.
I've read
1,000 million GoFundMe campaigns,
oh my God.
And it really caught my eye because it's a serious situation, but you kind of led into it with humor, which is sort of the brand of a theater comedy space, and then you laid out exactly what you needed help with, and so just logistically, excellent job.
Thank you.
Excellent job. And then so you needed $15,000 to cover all the moving costs, and I think you exceeded it by almost $1,000.
Yeah.
I really would love to know what the experience of launching it was like, and what it felt like to see your community rally for you like that.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It was terrifying at first, because at first we launched it and people were sharing it. It was great. And then you hit that mark where stuff starts really slowing down.
Yeah.
So then I was like, I'm going to gamify this, and told all the house teams that whoever won would get the green room named after them.
Oh my God, that's so smart.
Yeah. And so then that really kicked us into making that amount of money.
Yeah.
That is such a good tip.
Yeah. Gamifying is good.
Yeah.
Well, you have to, I think I'm always nervous about doing anything like a GoFundMe or, any kind of asking for help publicly. It's vulnerable and it's scary, and the fear is that you press publish on this thing $1 gets donated from your mom and then nothing else happens.
Ouch.
And you're just like, that's your answer.
Yeah.
And so it was really overwhelming, just the number of donors also, just how we got there with such small increments is just incredible. Just like the amount of people, I think, was the most kind of emotional experience for me was just like, you know, people that I know are living paycheck to paycheck, and people I know that don't have tons of disposable income, giving us $5, giving us $10, and things that, like, you know, that really mattered to them. That was a really a tough decision, and they chose to spend it on this idea that we had, and that was
and also seeing so many people's who are in our community who are really strong members of our community, like Elizabeth Osterwich, Melinda Palomino, whose families really came out and supported, which was like amazing just to see that their families support them in this huge way, that their families know that they're part of our community and that this is really important to them. So all of that was really beautiful to see too.
Yeah.
Plus, they're comedians, so a lot of the donors that we got were fake and very funny.
Oh,
that's true.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Do you remember one?
Oh God, I wish I had it all on. I was gonna like look at it before I came in, but
well, we had the live telethon.
Oh yeah, then we did the telethon. I forgot about that.
Oh my
We did
gosh.
like a Facebook Live event that you put together, right?
Yeah, it was me and Jackie Tran. It was Jackie Tran and Laura Breen's idea. It's two of our sketch team members.
Nice.
Right.
And they're like, we want to do this telethon. It's gonna be really weird. And I was like, I love it. Let's do it. So then I think we raised like another $200 to $400.
Yeah.
Nice.
Telethon. It was really ridiculous.
But it was my joke, so I'm happy about it. But one of our performers does this very bizarre show called United Dance Party that's sort of like a Pee Wee Herman-esque type experience. And he plays a character called Mr. Time Space, who's a time traveler. And we had a projection of the GoFundMe page that anytime anything was donated, you could see, you know, when it was updated there. And so during his bit, I was watching because I was at home taking care of our kid, and I was watching him, and he was talking about like trying to solicit donations. And so I created a I created a profile for him from the future to donate while he was doing that. And it was just so satisfying for him because he just looked at it and then just kept going. Just was like, yep, that's correct. And just kept going.
This is me from the future.
Right.
We had one person, it was the 1986 Mets donating.
Oh, right.
Nice.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's
There was just a
awesome.
lot of like, Limp Bizkit, I believe, was
Oh,
one.
yeah, they
It
came
was just
through.
just like ridiculous.
That's
and
so
all of
funny.
them I like wrote back.
Yeah.
And was just like, thank you so much. Like, I'm a huge fan of Cookie or whatever, whatever it was. Like, thank you, Fred Durst.
Oh my
I know this
gosh.
is hard for you. Yeah. Just like,
You also don't know that it wasn't him.
I do know it wasn't him. Because in the end, this is a little hot tip. In the PayPal account, you can see the
Yeah.
donors.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see their account. So I knew who it was.
Usually their email too.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to see that information.
Well,
No.
I can't be trusted.
You keep it
That's
all
not
for
true.
me. That's not true at all.
So I wrote the dumbest joke here in a question. It's so
Oh,
Good.
do
Let's
it.
hear it.
I said, so the $16,000 question, are you up and running in the new space?
Pretty good.
I really don't like it now.
Pretty good.
No.
Nope, keep it in.
Take it, love it, commit to it, and that's your first Ruby LA lesson in comedy. Don't let it die. We've had a class going,
Yeah.
a stand-up class
Nice.
going on Sundays, and we had our soft little open house on Saturday. So yeah, we're up and running.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was like everything else, there was a huge amount of challenges that came about when you're doing construction. We originally were planning on starting building 2 weeks before we actually could because we couldn't get power to the space.
Oh, wow.
And it was this whole thing with the city and trying to figure out, you know, the previous tenant had been, you know, taken away very quickly. And so that account was locked and we couldn't get, it was just like thing after thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you've ever done any kind of construction project, you know that there's always going to be delays and all of that. So we were just dealing with that. And then Lindsey, I think about a month ago, said, okay, we're going to have an open house. It's going to be this date, and just basically put it on the calendar.
Nice.
And that was like, no matter what, we are letting people into this building on that day,
Yeah.
which is so valuable because it really, I mean,
Yeah.
our community really came together and helped us out
Yeah.
a ton. We had so many people from our community who stopped by in between jobs and worked for an hour and painted
Wow.
or like helped build a wall and, really, really valuable things. But I think it also gave us a specific deadline because we
Yeah.
would have worked forever. I
Yeah.
mean, it just,
Yeah.
it's not ready. It's not done.
No.
There's tons of things that we want to make it prettier and hang up,
Safer.
put a rug somewhere.
Yeah.
It's very safe.
It's super safe. It's super safe. It's great.
very
It's great.
safe.
It's great. I don't. It's very safe. It is very safe.
But it, it did give us like a firm set deadline.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like I said, we were there till 1 a.m. the night before getting it done.
Yeah.
But I was so proud, when we were able to open those doors and let people in.
Yeah.
It was so, it's the same thing as like launching the campaign. It's so
Yeah.
vulnerable to be like, it's just been us and the people who have come to help with the construction who've seen it so far. And now we're kind of saying we're ready. And are they going to walk in and say like, oh, this place is a shithole?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. We painted everything pink, and we were talking the night before, like, okay, what's the worst thing that people are gonna say when they come in? And I was just like, it's so pink,
right.
because it was just
would
like a
ever
really
say that?
nice.
Yeah.
Well, no one did. Actually, no one said that. I painted the green room green, and that was the biggest comment. Wow, it's green.
Right.
That means green room. So
Right.
I did that.
What was the response like on open house day?
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really nice. People were excited about the space, and yeah. One thing, just going kind of back to what Randy was saying about setting the date. On Friday, I was like talking to my husband, and I had said something about we only had one more week, and then I said if we had one more week, I would die.
Yeah.
Like I would physically die because I can't do this for another week.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
amount of work. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that we set the deadline for ourselves.
Yeah.
And then also like let go and let God, essentially, of like
Yeah.
this is where we are, and we just are okay with that, and we're going to show people, and this is exciting. But yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that was about a month ago.
No, that was on Saturday.
On Saturday.
Yeah.
Oh my
it's
God.
fresh.
It's very fresh.
Yeah.
That's why I said it's been a great day, because it's been a day off. And when we
Oh.
walked
Yeah.
in, so I was doing. I was like, it's good. It's a day off.
Well,
Yeah.
wow. Let's just all take a moment and take a breath together. That's
Right.
a lot of
Oh,
work.
yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I didn't
Thank
realize it
you.
was that recent.
Yeah.
So how long do you think before you'll do something like Queer Comedy Fest again or something like that?
Well, Queer Comedy Fest was on the books after the last Queer Comedy Fest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what that date is, but it's sometime in June,
Okay.
which is
That
that's
seems
when
doable.
that's Pride Month.
Yeah.
So so it does seem doable. I remember last year talking with Scott, like, okay, let's set the date, and then in August we'll do this, and in November we'll have this done, and then August came and we had to move, and it was like, okay, all of those things I was going to do to get ready for this festival are now stopped. So I've been thinking about that a lot lately, about,
Yeah.
okay, well, I really need to start soon thinking about
Right.
what that's going to entail. But yeah, that'll still be in June, and then we're going to start doing shows regularly soon in February. So
Cool.
yeah.
That is so that I'm so happy for you all that you found a new space and you're
Yeah.
getting settled in, and
Yeah.
I just think what you've built and what you're continuing to build is so special and powerful. So
Thank you.
just
Thank you very
congratulations.
much.
Yeah, it's really incredible.
It's nice.
So what are you most excited for the future? What's next?
Oh my God, my first answer was sleep.
Don't
I
say
said,
that.
That's a
don't
good
say that out loud. Don't say it out loud, and then I did it anyway. What am I most excited about? I think right now being able to take a step back and actually think about what we can do instead
Yeah.
of what we have to
Yeah.
get done.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what are we able to kind of like focus on and think about?
Yeah. I'm excited for our first. So Lindsey and I also perform at the space. We're also on an
Nice.
improv team together. I'm excited for that team's first show in this space because
Yeah.
it's a team that's been together for 4 years, I think now. I mean, it's been a
Wow.
long time,
Yeah.
and has gone through what was the Nerdist School, then the Ruby in the old space, and now in this new space. And it just feels like a nice kind of personal journey through all of it too. So I'm excited for that. And also just while we were building, we were always going to be limited by some things, but we were able to say, okay, these were the things that weren't working super well in our old space, or we're a little uncomfortable in the old space. Now we can do these things a little bit differently. So we have more like physical space to play in.
Yeah.
And we have, more it just logistically works out a little bit better. And so I'm just excited to get, our feet wet as far as like doing our shows again.
Yeah. The artistic director is going to get those shows on the book real soon.
Yep. Whenever she gets out of a podcast.
Stops podcasting. She swears. When we had everybody at the open house, the community members were like, so when's our first show? And I was like, well, sketch is definitely February 8th and February 15th. And improv, and then I would just like slowly walk out of the some Tuesday coming up.
Stay tuned.
Definitely. Hey, keep your Tuesdays available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also I'll add one more thing. I'm really excited to see who shows up.
Yeah.
Because we did sort of develop our community in the old place that we always had new blood coming in. We had just created some new teams, a few months before we moved. So it was already pretty exciting to see this new group of people, the new crop of like performers and audience members. And here I think it's just going to be, we'll see.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see who that
Yeah.
is.
I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
I really want to drive back up and see a show.
Yeah, please
You
do.
should. We would give you free tickets.
Oh my God. I'll pay. I'll gladly
That's
support.
so nice of you. See, what you do is offer free tickets first.
Good.
Yeah. Classy move, huh?
Well, kind of to put a cap on things, I would love to hear from each of you. What's one thing you've learned from this experience that you'd maybe want people to take away or think about?
You can do it. That's what I think. Like it's huge. It's a big task, but break it down and then have a community that can support you. Have like at least a couple people who are there for you and that can listen to you when you're angry and sad and frustrated, and also commiserate with you. I don't know. I want to say this is a little bit emotional, but I want to say that working with Randy in these past couple months so hard on this space has just been, every moment of it has been just delightful. It's been so nice. Like we've never been like, I can't do this with you anymore. We're here until 1 a.m. and I can't do this. Like at 1 a.m. we're listening to Carly Rae Jepsen doing crazy dance moves and like still hammering and nailing and stuff together, which was like, even my husband, who's not a performer at all, yesterday he was like, I know we don't need to go to space, but I kind of miss like seeing you and Randy like dance around and be silly. And I was like, I know, I don't miss like the physical pain of all of that work, but yeah. But to have a good group with you is really important, and to know that small steps and you'll get there. Yeah.
I love that.
I totally agree, and I think that for me, the experience of most GoFundMes that I've seen is leaning on a community of some sort, whether it's one that you have or one that you're trying to build or whatever it is. And I think that was the nicest part of it for me, is that we had to lean on our communities, both with just the campaign and then with building this space. And it was just so amazing to see how many people kind of came out for you, and to realize that, it's scary and it's incredibly overwhelming to accomplish, but if something matters this much to you, it's got to matter that much to someone else too. And if you just maybe put it out there, and be a little vulnerable and say, hey, I really care about this thing and I need help to make it a reality, I think, I was surprised to see how many other people kind of, were there for us.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, this experience has been amazing. And I think just that we did it feels so unbelievably, I feel so proud and so just happy that we accomplished it. And we definitely didn't want to kill each other through almost any of it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And
For hardly any of it.
Yeah. Lindsey's husband was there almost every night with us building this space.
And Randy's mom flew in to visit, and she was there every night.
Yeah, my mom, my stepdad both visited. And then my wife was taking care of our 17-month-old the whole time.
Wow.
It's like I'm working full time and then changing clothes and saying like, okay, good night, honey. I got to go work till midnight at this space doing construction. And she was, a rock star and held it down at our house. And it was just like, there were a million different component parts of this, but all kind of boiled down to like different members of our community just like holding us up and supporting us.
Yeah, for sure. And then at the party, I got a present from Rebecca.
I didn't get a present.
I'm sorry. It's a face mask, but I can share one with you if you want.
You guys deserve a face mask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, wonderful. Well, just to end an improv classic, we'll just do a quick zip.
Oh, zap.
Zap.
Nice. We did it.
We did it.
That's a wrap, people.
Improv.